19th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. Everybody there? All right, so we're going to start reading at verse 1. It says, "For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God." Everybody see that? "No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them." Now, of course, King Solomon wrote this book, Ecclesiastes, and he had all kind of time on his hands. And he did, I think, what a lot of us need to do. He thought about his life. He looked at his experiences, and he thought about all of the things that got him to the different places that he ended up at in his life. Now, I think that that's important for us to do, especially as men. Today being Father's Day, I believe that that's something that we need to do as fathers if we're going to lead our families. We think logic, and so it is more natural for us to go from A to Z and understand how we got there. For women, a lot of times they go from A to Z and don't understand how they got there because it was an emotional roller coaster. It was an emotional ride, and they'd have to go back and visit all of the pain and all of the decisions that they made based on pain, and that's not a place that a lot of them are willing to go. And so with men, it's most of our decisions are based on logic, and so it's more natural for us to be able to visit where we've been, where we've gone, and how we got there. So Solomon, you know about his life, he was the son of King David. See, and God had granted him wisdom. But that wisdom didn't do him any good if he didn't sit down and meditate. He had to sit down and think. And this is how men, especially as fathers, we're supposed to lead our homes. We think about things. It's important that and so Solomon is examining life. He's examining decisions that he's made. He's examining the things that he sees, and what I love about him is he doesn't have to experience everything. He's a student of life. He's looking at other people's lives. I beheld, you read that in the book of Proverbs, a simple man going down the street minding his business, and then some woman called to him and tell him, "My husband is away, I'm no longer on my cycle and stuff, and so if you come in, I know what time he's getting, I know what day of the week he's coming home, and we got all of this time to play around." Now I'm just putting it in everyday English. That's what Solomon had observed. And he said, but he don't know what I've seen. He ain't the only man that's been there. And I've seen men go to hell behind this woman. Don't you be simple and do that. You see that? So he not only observed his life, but he observed other people's lives, and he taught his sons that, the book of Proverbs was written to his son. And that is what we're supposed to do as fathers. We're supposed to write that book for our sons. Sons, don't do what I did. And by the way, I've looked at what other people did and what it cost them, and don't you do that either. You're not supposed to be making the same silly mistakes your daddy made, that your grandfather made. That stuff is supposed to be passed on. Proverbs are supposed to be passed down. And as we go down the line, we're supposed to be wiser. But when we rebel against God, we're not. We're gonna make more mistakes, you see, and instead of get better down the road. And so Solomon, he's observing different things that have happened in people's lives and the things that he has seen in his own life as well. And so this is what we're reading here. He's just meditating and thinking about things and being led by the Holy Spirit to write what he feels. All right, so verse 2, it says, all things come alike to who? To all. Everybody see that? All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous. Everybody see that? Now pay attention to what he first said. All things come alike to who? All. Then he says there is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean, to the unclean, to him that sacrificeth and to him that sacrificeth not. As is the good, so is the sinner. Isn't that something? All throughout the Bible, not just in the New Testament, you see God putting a difference between good people or righteous people and sinners. You can't be both. Everybody see? All throughout God's word. And he that sweareth as he that feareth an oath. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of what? Evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. For to him that is joined to all the living, there is what? Hope. Everybody see that? Now you know on the other side there is no hope. Everybody understand that? That's heaven and hell. There's no hope in heaven. Because you've already accomplished what it is you're supposed to do. That's the pinnacle of what you can do when you get there. You have nothing else to hope for. Everybody understand? You don't have to worry about getting from point A to point B and your car breaking down before you make it to point B. You just think it and you're there. So everybody understand? So there is no hope. And likewise, there's no hope in hell. That's a torment to them. Does everybody understand? Verse 4, for to him that is joined to all the living, there is hope. For a living dog is better than a what? Dead lion. Everybody see that? Now you know a lion can whoop any dog. I don't care how you train your pit bull or your Rottweiler, he will not whoop a lion on his best day and on the lion's worst. Everybody see? Verse 5, for the living know that they shall die. So you see that? It ain't a person in this world that don't realize that. That's got any sense. That's old enough to think. They know I'm going to die. Everybody see that? Isn't that something? But what did he say? To the living there is hope. If you're among the living, you have hope. And you know death is part of that hope. Nobody's hoping to live forever in this earth. Even if they try, even if they live like they're going to live forever, they know death is coming. It ain't been one or two people that's been able to crack that code of death. You're going to have to leave this world some kind of way. Everybody understand? And everybody that's living understand that. You see? But he's saying, look at what he says there. For the living know that they shall die. So he's telling you that's your hope. But people put their hope on this side and just live a few years and hope to do something before they leave here versus preparing for the real hope. Everybody see? For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything, neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is what? Forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished, neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. That's for those of us who believe that our grandma came and visited us. And she's been dead for 30 years. No, that wasn't grandma. No, you're not going to see her standing in the doorway somewhere. Everybody understand? They have no more portion under this sun. Everybody see? Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Does everybody see that? He's saying live like you want to please God. Now is the acceptable time. Now, not tomorrow. Everybody understand? I'm telling you, we need to live and stop living a life of repentance. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me for this? Will you forgive me for that? Just live right. Now God accepts your works. The question you have to ask yourself is, what works are they? Everybody understand? Now, you keep saying I'm sorry and asking for forgiveness. That means you ain't got to change your heart and don't intend to change. God's got to, and so what you're telling God is, you got to bring something heavy for me, heavier than what I've already gone through, for me to change my mind about my mindset and the way I think about things. You have to come with the heavyweight, God, because what I've gone through so far, that ain't enough. This whipping I'm getting now, it ain't teaching me nothing. We're supposed to get right under the sun.
Amen.
Everybody understand? Yeah, under the sun. Right now is our portion. You see? Verse 8, let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ornament. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. Everybody understand? That's your portion in this life. Live joyfully with your wife. I refuse to live 50 years miserably with my wife. We're going to be happy. Some of us, we're gonna wake up one day and be 80 years old and still in the same place. Unhappy, unfulfilled, still having the same arguments, and ain't learned a thing. You know that's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting different results. God's trying to call you out of that stupidity. I know folks don't like that word, but it's in the English language and I'm going to say it. It is stupid to keep doing the same thing and expecting something different.
Amen.
It's time to grow up and get out of flesh.
Amen.
Everybody understand? The Bible tells it's a command. He didn't say if you feel like it, live joyfully. If you're in a good mood, he's telling you live joyfully. That's your portion under the sun. Outside of heaven, that's the best thing you're going to experience, is having a wife. And he's telling you to live joyfully with her. Everybody understand? I said, do we understand? Now, this Bible, when it was written, it was not divided in chapter and verses. A slight exception of that is the book of Psalms, because the book of Psalms is several songs put together, if that makes any sense. So each chapter in the book of Psalms, which is why we call them the number of Psalms when we refer to them, each chapter is its own song. But even that was not divided in different verses. And so what you have to do sometimes to understand what you're reading is read everything in context. So for instance, the last part of this verse, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. Does everybody see that? That should have been included with the next verse. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. Everybody understand? So he's talking about labor. He's talking about the things that you can work in your body, if that make any sense. The things that you can do under the sun. He said, if you're going to do it with your might. Put your all into it. Don't halfway do it. Whatever it is that you're tasked to do it with your might. That's what God accepts. God couldn't use anybody and work with anybody that was just standing on the sideline for the devil. Somebody that was lukewarm and just standing on the sideline. And so he looked at Saul. You're busy somebody. You killing folks and holding coats for people? You going to City Hall and getting all kind of decrees to put Christians in jail? I like you. I can use that because you're doing it with your might. Everybody understand? That's the reason why God could use Peter. Even when you're wrong with all your might. You ain't just sitting back hoping not to offend. You ain't sitting back just in the cut and hoping not to be corrected. Well, you all the way wrong when you're wrong, and I can use you because when I get you right, you're going to be all the way right.
Amen.
God can't use timid people. Everybody understand? He can't use people that's in between somewhere. When you live for the devil, you live all the way for him, and when you live for God, it's got to be the same way.
Amen.
So everybody understand? So he can't use folks that's in church on Sunday and then in the club Saturday. You ain't doing nothing with all your might. You halfway in everywhere. No, if you living for the devil, live for him with all your might. Go on out there and live for him with all your might. Be all the way in wherever you're going to be. Everybody see? That's what God wants to use. Why? Because if you're fully convinced anyway, that's the way you're going to be. It's going to be with all your might when you're fully convinced. When I was living in the world, I knew that there was a God I was supposed to serve, but I was fully convinced I was not ready. So until I get ready, I'm not going to act like I'm halfway ready. I'm not going to be half in, half out. I'm not going to go to church and do my thing in the world at the same time. I'm going to be all the way in. Everybody understand? Now, we're not talking about folks that's got struggles, but we're talking about people that's trying to live a double life, thinking that they're pleasing God and man at the same time. And so God was sitting back looking at Saul. You doing this with all your might. You really believe you're right. You're wrong, but I like the fact that at least your conviction, you're following your conviction with all of your might. I can use that. Everybody understand? I can't use anybody that's on the sideline there just in case God is real, I'm serving. Them folks ain't never going to heaven. You don't get into heaven. Well, God, I'm glad you were real, because that's the reason why I was serving you, just in case you were. That's not faith. Everybody understand? No, you can't serve a just in case God. Just in case hell is real, I'm going to serve God. Just in case this thing, Christianity, is real, I'm going to try it. No, that ain't, So he tells us, verse 10, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, for there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest. People can read that and go, that's depressing. It is if you don't know where you're going after the grave. Everybody understand? He's just, see, God lays out the whole picture. You're going to the grave. No doubt about it. Unless the Lord Jesus Christ tarries, you're going to the grave. On the way there, be sold out to whatever cause you have. If you're married, live joyfully with that wife. Whatever cause you have, be sold out to it on the way there. Everybody understand? Verse 11. Now this is what we really want to pay attention to. It says, I returned and saw under the sun. Now, let's pay attention to this verse. I pray that this will change our lives and our mindsets about different things. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. Everybody see that? Neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding. Does everybody see that? Race, battle, bread, riches. Let me read that again. The race is not to the swift, in other words, to the fastest, nor the battle to the strong, in other words, those that are very trained in what they're doing in battle. Neither yet bread to the wise, everybody see that, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. Everybody see? You can have all the skills in the world. You got your resume all typed up and nice and neat, just like they told you to format it in college and send it in, and they will reject you. Because you're not going to get past God's favor. If God's favor is on somebody else for that job, you just going to miss out. And ain't no use in getting depressed about it. Just say, well, it wasn't for me. This is saying God don't have favorites. Does everybody understand? And life don't have favorites. I'm going to read this again because I think it needs to sink into us. The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. Now listen very carefully, because this is the name of the message. But time and chance happeneth to them all. And that's the name of this message. Time and chance. What does it do? Happens to them all. So let's kick over this religious cow. That what God has for me is for me. Where's that at in your Bible? Everybody understand? What God has for me is for me and nobody else. That's the lie Saul was living. What God has for me is for me until I disobey. And then God will take it and give it to somebody that should have got it in the first place. Somebody that was better than me. David at one time thought the same thing. What God has for me is for me. I'm king now. See how he took it from Saul and gave it to me. He said I was better than him. Until I slept with Bathsheba and tried to hide it and killed her husband. And then God took it from me and gave it to my wicked son. Israel thought the same thing when they came out of Egypt. What God has for me is for me. He promised us we can go to the promised land. Until we got there and found out there were giants there. Oh, we ended up getting there 40 years later. Time and chance. Time, and think along those lines. That's how God deals with mankind. Time and chance. In other words, opportunity. Does everybody understand? We have to think along those lines. Think about where you are in life. Think about where you are right now in life. Are you satisfied with where you are? Are there things in your life right now you feel like I should be further along? At this age, I should have this, or I should have accomplished that. Don't put it off on God because you haven't. Time and chance happen to everybody, not just to God's elite.
Amen.
Does everybody understand? And one bad, stubborn decision will set you off course for the rest of your life. Especially if you don't have enough sense to know, wait a minute, I made a wrong turn somewhere. Does everybody understand? Let me see, Brother James, go ahead. I'm hoping that this is... I want to show you this little graph here. Hopefully it'll show up. All right, can everybody see that? How many of you have ever been on a flight? Have ever flew anywhere? How many of you ever had a connecting flight to get to your destination, had to get on more than one flight? How many of you almost missed your connecting flight? And so what happens when you miss a connecting flight? So let's say this right here is the beginning of your flight, at the very beginning there. Every circle, the red circles, equals destinations. This is our life. I'm trying to parallel it for you. This is our life. Everybody understand? And every circle, the red circle, represents a destination. In between those circles is time and chance. The distance in between the circles is time. The dashes in between the circles represents chance. In other words, opportunity. Does everybody understand? So the best way I can put it is to explain it to you this way. In 2007, because I can just go over my whole life and explain this, but we'll just start in 2007. Actually, in 2006, I had a dream that the Lord, I was sitting on the side of my best friend up here in Tennessee, and just to make it short, and I told him to put his hand in my hand, and the Lord healed him of what was ailing him in his body. In 2007, I got a call from, 2006 rather, at the end of 2006, I think, I got a call, it might have been 2007, I got a call from a relative of mine concerning me living in her house that she didn't own at the time, didn't have a house. She called me about it and asked me, what does it mean? I said, well, the Lord's showing you that I'm going to come to where you are. At the time, she was in California. And she was looking after her older sister, my oldest auntie on that side. So when she put in to continue to be stationed there for family's sake, to look after, they denied that request. No, you need to be stationed in Clarksville. She couldn't understand that. But the Lord knew. Does everybody understand? So she accepted that instead of just getting out of the military, she accepted that and she moved there. But right after getting there, she bought a house. She had tried to buy one before where she was, but she was denied. But all of a sudden, when she get here, she's not. So she bought a house. And right after buying the house, they told her, yeah, we moved you here, but you're going over to Afghanistan. So who do I call on to watch that house? You're looking at them. That's how I ended up here. Time and chance. Does everybody understand? So that was 2007. I moved up here in December of 2007. And sometime during the summer, I think, of 2009, I had bought a mobile home and had it moved on my family property to live in because my aunt had come home. Not here though, in Louisiana, where I'm from. Time had changed. So you know what happened? I went down this line to the green circle. Can everybody see that? That will never connect you to this. You will never get back in this red line to where you're supposed to be down here. So God kept it from happening. In my mind, I moved back to Louisiana, where I'm from. That's what I believe I'm supposed to do. Except there was a man across the street that wanted that property. And the way he thought he was going to get it was by having my mobile home knocked down. And he did it himself, all through the channels of the city. So the Lord said, no, I'm going to block you for your sake and for the sake of those I'm going to send to Tennessee later. Okay, so Lord, now we're back on the red circle. I took a hit. Does everybody understand? So then I understood, okay, so I need to pray about every move, not just assume anything. Time and chance. Everybody understand? So at the end of 2009, I started doing family research, and that's how I found my wife. Now, most of you know, my wife and I, we got the same last name, and that's what got us to talking in the first place. And in that research, we found out, well, we're not kin. That's odd to have the same last name like that, because it's so uncommon, and being from the same state and not being kin to one another. We never talked on the phone. At some point, I think we exchanged numbers, but never talked on the phone. And then, I think it was sometime right after Christmas, I got a text message from a number I didn't recognize, because I gave her my number, but I didn't have hers through email and stuff. And so, I got a text message, and I noticed it was from 225. Now, I thought it was my sister, because she had the same area code. I didn't recognize the number. My sister, one of my sisters, she was just, one of those people, every year she will have a different phone number. So, okay, well, that. Happy New Year to you too. And so I responded, and then she responded, my wife responded back and let me know who she was. I said, oh, okay, so we texting back and forth, and of course, New Year's, all of the lines are plugged up and jammed because everybody and their mama wishing everybody and their other mama Happy New Year's. So after we got tired of texting, she called. And that was in January 1st, 2010. And that was the day, she said, when we talked on the phone, the Lord let her know that this is your husband. So on January 8th, I sent her a little note like we all did in 3rd grade. Will you be my girlfriend? Circle yes or no. She circled yes. Everybody see? There's your other destination. Yes, I'll be your girlfriend. See the circle there? But then we started talking, and my wife at that time, she loved to talk. So I thought, no, I don't know. I can't want to be with somebody that's doing all this talking more than me. Can I say something? Can you see me raise my hand? I know she's a good girl. So we started spending time together. And we knew we were supposed to get married. So we set a date. I prayed about it, and the Lord said May 8th. I knew that before I knew what day it was going to fall on. It just so happened to fall on Saturday. So that same year, that's why I know you ain't got to date for 2 years. You ain't even got a date for a year. If it's God's will, it's God's will. See, time and change. So that's the next circle. See, still in this line here. So we got married. Now now let me go back for just a second. What would life look like? Have any of you thought, as long as you can remember being in this line here, even after all the mistakes and getting back on task, could you imagine what your life would look like right now if you weren't married to the person that you're married to? That's why it's important to stay on that line. Think about where you would be, what your mindset would be, if you hadn't taken time and opportunity. Everybody understand? So you think of these as connecting flights. Every circle here is a connecting flight. You have a certain time to connect to that flight, and you only have one opportunity for that flight. That is life. So let's say, for instance, I had rode this wave of, no, she talking more than me. I can't marry somebody like that. And if I had just stayed there, well, if this is the woman that God has for me, I might be standing up here today, a single man. Might not be standing up here at all. So let's take it to the next circle. The next circle, so we got married in May of 2010, and we bought our house in January, 8 months later, in 2011. I don't think that would have happened if we weren't married. Does everybody understand? I'm trying to show you how it all connects. And you can't skip destinations. Does everybody understand? But something happened on the night that we closed on that house that I'm telling you, I did not like it. And that was a big contention between my wife and I. For whatever reason, the people that drew up the paperwork, they left my name off of that mortgage. But I needed to sign it. And at first I said, no. You go back to the drawing board and get your lawyers and do whatever you got to do. I will not sign this without my name being on that deed. And they talked to me for a while, Mr. Bolden, can you, because this will set us back a few weeks. So be it. I was a hot somebody. And then my wife, I looked at her and I could see how it was bothering her. I said, okay, I'll go ahead and sign it. Y'all only got so long to get me that paperwork with my name on that deed. And so that's what they did. Within a week, it might have been maybe 2 days later, they sent they sent it with my name on it. I couldn't understand what I see. It was the Lord. It was the enemy trying to pull me away from that red line. That was the house that God has for us. Now, when my wife and I, when we were house hunting, that wasn't the house that we bought. That was not my first choice. Now, I'm trying to show you how important it is to stay on that red line. I wanted a house with more yard, and we had found one on the same day. And then we went to the house that we eventually bought, and my wife, and she was looking, she's like, well, which one do you? I said, I want this one. This is the one I want, the one on Roman Drive, that's the one I want. I said, which one would you want? And she said, I like this one, all this closet space, all of the space that it has. I can care less about all the closet space. I want a yard. Now, the house that I wanted was in the Nashville city limits. The house that she wanted was in Antioch, outside of Nashville. So then I thought, well, you know what? My wife is the homemaker. We'll go ahead and take this house. Now, that was, to me, that wasn't my first choice. But I saw how she really loves that house, so I said, okay, we'll go ahead and get this one then. We'll go ahead and get it. So that was in May, that was in January of 2011 that we bought the house. Eight years later, or really about 7 years later, we started looking for some church property and thinking we're gonna buy some property for a church, because up until that point we're having church in the basement of the house. So we started looking for a church property. And so, time and chance again, everybody understand. I was in the market to buy a air compressor. So I looked, couldn't find one, then finally found one about 2 hours south of Nashville. My wife and I, on a Friday, we drove down there to his house, to the man and the woman's house. They're a nice old couple. He showed us pictures and took us through and stuff. They lived on, I think, 10 acres of land, and they was giving us the background of how they got it and how they had to fix it up and do all of this stuff, and how, and showing us how much work they had done on it and stuff like that. The old lady, she was on a ladder working on the barn when they first bought the place and fell off and broke her shoulder. So and then he took us to his den and showed us pictures of an astronaut, back in the old days, I guess. And he said, "Who do you think that are?" I said, I said, "I don't know." He said, "That's me." I said, "You are an astronaut?" He said, "Yes." So they're giving us all this history. And he tells this story of how they were living with their son. At some point when they moved, they lost their farm up in the northwest somewhere. And they ended up moving to Tennessee to live with the son, and he was out driving one day, and somebody sideswiped him, T-boned him, and he ended up in the hospital, and he got a big insurance settlement, and that's how they bought that place. I said, "So how did you find this place?" Craigslist. I never thought about it. So we told him, "Well, we're looking for another place. We're looking not for a house, we're looking for a church, a property for a church and stuff like that." He said, "Well, get on it." So that Saturday, that's what we did. We got on it. I looked on Craigslist. I found the property where we live now. I went to send it to my wife. I said, look at this property. And when she looked it up on her phone, the church property came up, not the property that we live at. The church property popped up. And then we looked, well, let's see what the distance is between the places. And they were 20 miles away from one another. Now, this all got to be God's will. The properties that we were looking at before, we were thinking, okay, so we'll buy just a nice flat piece of land, we'll dig a big hole and put some fish in it. We'll plant some trees. We'll build this, we'll build that. But this property was the promised land. It already had apple trees. It already had pecan trees. It already had a big pond with fish in the back of it. Everything that we wanted was already there. So when we saw that, I told my wife, I said, I will sell this house to buy that property. Because at first I said, if we buy something else, we're not selling this. But I told my wife, I'll sell this house to buy that. The house cost us, we signed the contract and the mortgage, $144,000. When the house was sold, it sold for twice as much. That would not have happened if we had bought that house in Nashville. It probably would have gone down in value. Now I'm trying to show time and chance. We were able to sell our house that we had been in for 7 years, almost to the date. We were able to sell that house and buy where we're living at now, cash. Time and chance. I'm trying to show you, if I had missed any one of these destinations, we wouldn't be sitting here today. I had to make every connecting flight. Everybody understand? So what if I just remain stubborn? No, I'm not signing that contract because that's not the house I wanted anyway. No, I'm not marrying that woman. She talked more than me. Where would we be sitting at today? Everybody understand? Time and chance. So let's say if you're the type of person you like hanging on to ragged attitudes, your life is going to be connected down here. Stubbornness, bitterness, disobedience, unbelief. That's where you're going to live. And ain't none of it connected to this. And listen, I drew these black lines to show you can't get from this to this. You got to go back straight up to where you got off at. Does everybody understand? Time and chance. Let's read that scripture again. Verse 11. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to who? Them all. So everybody understand the timeline there now. So that's for you to examine your life. Let's say, for instance, now what would have happened if my wife had decided, I don't want to move up. I don't want to move to Tennessee. I'm already established where I am. What if I'd have compromised? Say, okay, I'll move back to Louisiana because that's where I want to be anyway. That's where I'm from as well. Everybody understand? So let's say, for instance, and I'm going to give a real life scenario. Let's say, for instance, after I'm on this line, I'm on this red line, and the Lord is calling people up to this same red line. You got people that God has spoke to their heart wherever they are. Move to Tennessee. That's what God wants you to be. Be a part of the ministry. But you delay a year. You done missed your flight. But then you try to get back on this line. You done talked. I'm moving to Antioch where y'all are. But you don't move to Antioch, you move an hour away. You buy a house and you think it's God that blessed you with it. Then you leave the ministry and stuck with a mortgage. And let me make this clear to all of us believers. It is not God's will for you to pay a bank for 30 years. It is not God's will for you to pay 2.5 times the price of a house. Time and chance happens to all. Does everybody understand? So to just distance yourself and to keep from looking crazy like the rest of us, I'm not gonna live in Antioch. Why? Because if I buy a house in Antioch just a few years later, it's gonna be worth double. But the house I'm living in now that I'm paying a mortgage for, I'm going under. It's not even worth what I signed the contract for anymore. Time and chance. I'm trying to show you how we mess our life up with one bad decision. One bad decision. Does everybody understand? How many of you have known somebody that had AIDS, or maybe that died from AIDS, or heard of somebody dying from AIDS? How many times did it take them to have sex to get AIDS? One bad decision. One bad decision. Everybody understand? I'm telling you, it'll mess the rest of your life up. That's what makes offense so dangerous. Because you'll live down here. You'll be off, and the whole time you'll be mad, you'll be bitter, because you'll see folks living up here, and you'll think, well, y'all just blessed anyway. No, we're not. Time and chance happens to all. Everybody's blessed if you're living. Time and chance happens to all. I could have disobeyed. I could have gotten my feelings. I could have stayed put. Or I could get out of flesh. Yes, sweetheart. What about the house that you desire? You're the one that's going to be making the home anyway. Yes, sweetheart. I think we should get married. Everybody understand? So when my wife, now let me share this real briefly. When my wife and I, before we got married, again, I was, that wasn't the only thing, the talking thing, it was just other things, and I thought, and not that was wrong with her or anything, I think it was just the idea that I had already tried marriage and was married for 13 years, and you figure when you're married to somebody that long, then you're going to go another 40 years, and it didn't happen. So I think that was my cold feet, like, I don't know if I want to be invested. And she's a good girl. I don't want to mess up her life just keeping her stringing along. And I think by that time we'd already had our first argument, after we thought, well, if this is God's will, we'll never argue. Everything, we're just going to be on cloud nine all the time. We'll never argue. And after that first argument, it was like, oh, Lord, here we go. Here's another one. And my wife was skilled at arguing. Very skilled. Everybody understand? Yeah, she had a PhD in that one. And I'm going to tell you what I mean when I say skilled. When it was all said and done, I was thinking, well, so what was that about? What were we arguing about? What started this? Because, she take you around this long circle. You start off talking about, well, you burn the beans. And then it ended up with, well, you shouldn't have did this. Well, wait a minute. So what were we arguing about? She was a master at just hide and seek stuff. Does everybody understand? I could call on something, well, I don't like the way you cooked. And then it ended up being something else. Well, everybody understand. Well, you didn't pay the insurance on the car. Or you didn't do this. Or you didn't do that. Or why are you talking to me? This is when you know it's getting off, folks. Brothers, for Father's Day. You can thank me later. When they get to questioning how you're approaching them about what you're correcting them about. That's your sign of, okay, so devil, I see what you're trying to do. And before it's all said, now you correcting her and trying to save her soul, and before it's all said and done, you repenting to her. Will you forgive me? I'm a peon. You were better than me when we got mad. I didn't deserve you. Then you go in your room, wait a minute, what just happened? I thought this was about her. So I saw all of that and I thought, no, I don't want to be married to that. Then I had a dream. In that dream, I was driving a tank down the road. And when I got to an intersection, I pulled my tank up into the intersection and turned the firing mechanism to the right to guard against traffic. And my wife, she was driving an 18-wheeler, and she crossed the intersection. And when she crossed the intersection, I got back in front of her, and I drove to the next intersection, and I did the same thing. I was always guarding the intersection so that she could cross. Then we pulled off to this side property that had a very steep hill on it. And she was going up this property, up this steep hill in his 18-wheeler, and it slowed down, and then it came to a stop. And I got out, I blew the horn to stop her, and I got out and I went to talk to her. And I was going to talk to her about whether or not we should continue up this hill. And as I'm talking to her, the Lord just appeared in this automobile, some kind of Jeep or truck, and he it was like he was going 100 miles per hour, and even when he turned the corner to get onto the property where we were, he didn't slow down. And I looked back at him as I'm standing outside of her vehicle. I look back at the Lord, and he's driving, and I understand he's about to ram me, my tank. And so when I understand he's not going to stop, I hurry up and run back to my tank. I get in and start it, and then the Lord shoves me into her and pushes us both up the hill. And that was the Lord telling me, don't delay time and chance. See, you don't have time for cold feet. You don't have time to question whether this is my will. This is my way of telling you, this is my will, and you're going to do it. The Lord didn't get out of his vehicle to come talk to me. Yeah, go ahead, Mary. It's okay. No, he appeared, and I knew exactly what he was about to do. He was about to shove my vehicle into hers and push us both up. But I needed to be in my vehicle. See, time and chance. And so the same thing happened when we bought the property that we're on now. We were in a predicament. We were selling our property before we could buy the property that we have now. It was other people looking at the property that we have now. And so we didn't want to be stuck. That was my thinking. Man, that's a bad predicament. We could sell this house, and sure enough, the man's going to buy it, and we know that. But what happens if we get to trying to buy this next place, and something fall through? So that was my thinking. Lord, we'd have to live in a hotel or something. We'd be stuck. We'd be technically homeless. Oh, we'd have plenty of money, but we'd technically be homeless. And I don't want my family to be homeless. I don't want to stay in a hotel. So then I had another dream similar to what I just told you. I was on the property that we have now before we bought it. And I was just laying in the middle of the yard. And it was a U-Haul backed up to the place. But I was just laying in the yard, like in a driveway. And here comes the Lord again with his U-Haul. And he does the same thing, going 100 miles per hour. And then he cuts into the yard. And I have to get up and out of his way. And that was his message to me. You buy that property. That's my will. And then, of course, after we bought that property, of course, we had our eyes on both of these properties at the same time. After we bought that property, the same thing was true with this one. We wouldn't have bought this land, this church, if we had not bought that property there. You see all these destinations, how they connected? You see how you don't have time for doubt? You don't have room for stubbornness? That's the reason why we preach against offense. Offense will keep you in this green here. That's the reason why we preach against disobedience. It'll keep you down here. That's the reason why we tell you to live a life of faith and get out of unbelief. It'll keep you down here. It will keep you making wrong decisions and missing your connecting flights. Does everybody understand? Here's the thing about this. You can't jump from here to there. Does everybody understand? No, you can't do it. It has to be on the red line, according to God's plan, time and chance. Now, I'm saying that to say this. You think about your own life. This is what we're doing this for. Examine your own life. We've had people leave the ministry because they got offended at the truth, because they wanted to live their own life. And I'm telling you, they missed God. Wasn't sold out to what we preached and missed God. My wife and I, we paid a mortgage for 7 years, and that was it. And now we outright own our property. Outright. But that was from following God. What happens if we get offended? What happens if we don't move according to how God has structured for us to move? What happens if we miss a connecting flight? We could have been stuck for 30 years paying a mortgage. in a house that was upside down. If we'd moved to Nashville instead of Antioch. Everybody understand? When people first moved here, my wife and I, one of the first things we talk about to them is integrity. Everybody understand? I don't believe that believers ought to have bad credit. And listen, I'm not trying to bring anything natural in this, but I'm telling you, if you're living according to this word, your credit is going to get better. You're going to pay people that you owe. You're not going to run from them. Everybody understand? You're going to do what you're supposed to do, and that's just automatic. God, if you seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, all these things will be added. Integrity and following God's will automatically get you good credit with man. Automatically. It's not a 10-step program. It's just, Lord, you told me not to owe any man. That's what your word says. You told me if I swear an oath, I ought to keep that oath. That's what your word says. Has nothing to do with my credit numbers. I'm going to be a good steward of what you put me in charge of. Does everybody understand? So oftentimes what happens when people first move here and we see what condition they're in, we talk to them. Live for the Lord with your whole heart. Your day of running from creditors is over when you come to this ministry. You pay people and live responsible. God changes our whole life. Everybody understand? Be responsible. If you know you ain't got but $1,000 a month coming in, you ain't got no business spending $1,500. Live within your means. You know why? Because time and chance happens to all. People that's rich, it's not because they so smart. Time and chance happens to all. People that own houses, it's not because my wife and I don't own property because we were so smart. Time and chance. Everybody understand? We had opportunities to make good decisions and we had opportunities to make bad decisions. But it was based on where we were in God. You see, and that's the reason. So you think about it. If you're living down here, you after a while, after about 10 years of paying a mortgage, you're going to get bitter. Does everybody understand? And you're going to really be mad at folks that's like, it look like to you like they ain't got no trouble. No, just time and chance. That's all. Time and chance happens to everybody. So we talk to people. You live within your means. Live like you belong to God. Don't do this. Don't do that. And we try to help them because we don't want them to miss any of these destinations. But when folks are grown and got an ounce of stubbornness, that's all it takes. I'm grown. Don't you tell me what to do with my money. I've been waiting all my life to get grown and make my own money. Okay, grown. So from here to here can take, I'm going to just use the children of Israel. From Egypt to the Promised Land, that was about an 11-day walk. How long did it take them to get to their destination? 40 years. How many people dropped off and died in those 40 years? Everybody understand? I'm going to tell you something. You could have a time and chance, and if you miss it, you may not ever get connected. Folks die right here. Yeah, they do. You might not ever get reconnected when you go against time and chance. Everybody understand? Let me make this clear. God don't always give second chances. David got one, but not King Saul. God hard-headed and stubborn. Don't come to God already knowing everything. Everybody understand? If God's got to, he'll take the rest of your life knocking down that pride. He'll spend the rest of your life getting rid of stubbornness. You can't even start out on this line with stubbornness. You got to get rid of that first. Everybody understand? And so God wants us to walk according to this way. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to miss God. And I'm always looking for that time, a certain time frame to do something. Everybody understand? You got a certain time frame to do it. You don't have the rest of your life to do it. The children of Israel thought that, well, we can reject, we can accept what the 10 bad reports said, and we just won't go in. And then when Moses told them, okay, y'all silly. And when he came back with 40 years, okay, so now we got to wait 40 years. Then they girded themselves, put on their armor of war. We're going to take it now. And God told Moses, tell them not to even try. They'll be defeated right at the door. Don't even try. You know why? They had a certain time frame. You were supposed to accept that word when it came back. God was telling them the whole time, I've given you the land. But you see what? Unbelief. Unbelief, Stag, just a split-second decision of we can't go in and there's giants in the land. And we be like grasshoppers in their sight. That's all it took. And after they were finished making that statement, God come up with 40 years. And there was nothing they could do about it. So you don't always get to repent with God and then he just make it right and just set everything back in order and in time. No, you're going to wait those 40 years. Everybody see? That was their next best deal. 40 years. And you know, it could have took longer than that if they had just chose to remain stubborn. Does everybody understand? And so God had to wait until stubbornness dropped off. God had to wait till all the grown folks died. Everybody see? Time and chance happens to them all. Ain't nobody better than anybody else because of what they got, because of how God has blessed them. Time and chance. And this is a message to help us to examine our lives. What have we missed already? Or what could we miss going down the pike because we grown? Because we're upset about something? I'm telling you, people get offended at the craziest stuff. Offense, you guarantee not to be up here. That's a guarantee. Jesus Christ said, blessed are those who are not offended in me. If you're going to grow in God, you got to get rid of offense. And I'm telling you, people have came and gone in this ministry because they got offended. And just at God's word. They ain't never seen me doing nothing wrong. Just at God's word. Don't like the way it's preached. You know, and really what it is God's getting on them about something and they don't like it. I ain't come here to be changed. No, I didn't get saved to be changed. Everybody understand? You'll stay at ground zero. You want to get to your destination. And from that point on, and make this clear, when you get down here, all the decisions you make after that is going to be off. Does everybody understand that? You stubborn? You proud? All the decisions that you make are going to be off. Everybody understand? So if you're down here, you're going to automatically miss this. Because this is not even in your line of sight. Everybody understand? When you're down here, this line here is not in your line of sight. At some point, you got to be praying, and God's got to wake you up to show you, you're down here. You need to get back up to where you were. Then when you get back up here, that's when all this other stuff is in your line of sight. Okay, Lord, now I can reach my next destination. And I'm telling you, as a parent, as a shepherd, and just as one that observes life, I have seen people over and over and over again get warned, get talked to about not doing this, don't be this way, get rid of that stuff, don't hold on to this, get rid of that, get rid of it, and will not do it. And then you have to watch them just go through life, just making bad decisions, just tearing up their life everywhere they go. They ain't never settled, they ain't happy, just and knowing something off and can't put their finger on it. They ain't gonna look at themselves. It's everybody else's fault. If you had just did this and if somebody just did that, I wouldn't be this way, I wouldn't, no. Time and chance happens to all. That's you. My time and chance ain't got nothing to do with you and the decision that you make. Everybody understand? Yeah, it ain't got nothing to do with you. Me doing something ain't got nothing to do with you and the decisions that you make. Everybody understand? I've seen folks leave. All right, so we get what the Holy Spirit is saying to us today. All right. All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this word that we've heard today. Lord, we thank you for making it plain to us. We ask, Lord, that you will help us to see ourselves and to examine ourselves according to this message today, Lord. And Lord, we pray that if any of us have gotten off track in any way, that you will help us to get back on track, Lord, that you will show us maybe, Lord, where we made the wrong turn at. Help us, Lord, to get back in your will if we're out of your will. Help us not to continue to go down the wrong path, Lord. Help us to believe what we just read, Lord, that time and chance happens to us all. Help us not to miss what you have for us. And help us not to try and go for what you have for others, Lord. And we thank you for this word and making it plain. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray.